What do all these songs have in common?
God only knows what I'd be without you.
I'm in a New York state of mind.
Mama, don't you treat me wrong. Come and love me, daddy, all night long.
They're all great songs, but also they were all written really quickly. The list goes on, and it almost seems normal for great songwriters to be able to write these great songs in almost no time at all. So how is this possible? Because it doesn't happen in any other art form. Paintings, books, or even classical music can take weeks or months just to formulate the initial idea. Now, sure, songs are of course usually very short, perhaps only 3 minutes long, and we're only talking about the actual written song, not the final production, which can take months. But the question is, how can something so powerful be written almost instantly, with such little craft? And what happens if you do put more time and effort into the song? Does it make things worse?
Surf's up. For the tidal wave.
I've heard a lot of people say that as a songwriter, you're not so much an architect, but you're more of an archaeologist. Writing a song is more like searching for a song. You're just waiting for something to catch your ear, and then that will lead you towards something else. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, for example, believes that songwriting isn't something you can put much thought into.
So when you're thinking of a melody, you wait. It comes out of you without really designing it, does it?
Well, at times it's almost an unconscious thing, you know.
Yeah.
I believe that songwriting is an unconscious thing. I don't think that anybody can really concentrate on music and write music. I think it comes from a higher place in your mind. I'm almost sure of that.
And Noel Gallagher has said that songs seem to just fall out of the sky.
Fall out of the sky. Then when the good ones, they just appear out of nowhere.
And then Paul McCartney has said how, with John Lennon, they just see where the music takes them.
Yeah, I would sit down with John and we would just sort of follow this road.
It's almost as if they're just an observer in this songwriting process. And this isn't such a crazy idea. I've talked about it before on this channel, how in the learning process, it's sometimes good to try and remove that intelligent mind. For example, when we're talking, just like I am now, I'm not thinking of every single word that comes out of my mouth. Instead, I'm just trying to think of these ideas and the words come out by themselves. So this is all very well, but it kind of oversimplifies the process and just assumes that Brian Wilson can sit down anytime and just write another God Only Knows in 10 minutes. But we all know it's not as simple as this. So what actually happened on that day that Brian Wilson wrote God Only Knows?
Songwriting is the kind of thing where, you know, most of the time it's usually you get a feeling for something. So you go to the piano and you start playing chords, and the chords kind of come on subconsciously. You write with your subconscious mind. Usually if it feels like I'm laboring it, I just throw it away.
I think now we start to really come down to what music is, and ultimately what art is. A way that I like to look at it is through music we're trying to communicate a feeling or an idea to the listener. And the listener, through the music, is trying to connect to this idea or feeling. And the musician, when writing the song, is kind of going the other way and trying to use the music to search for this idea as well. Notice how in this diagram, the music is never the ultimate destination. It's just a way of connecting us to something a bit more meaningful. We all tend to think that music and songs have this inherent value, and maybe they do, that's probably a video for another time. But I tend to think more that they're a way of connecting us to something a bit more deeper, a feeling or an idea that we want to share. So this seems pretty simple. I think we all know how to write the perfect song. You just sit down and don't think too much about it. But again, we all know it's not that simple. What about the millions of other songs that took a bit more time to write? And what happens when a songwriter gets stuck? One of my favourite examples comes from Paul Simon. This is him on the Dick Cavett Show performing an unfinished version of Still Crazy after all these years.
I'm not the kind of man who tends to socialize, no. I seem to lean on old familiar ways. And I ain't no fool for love songs that whisper in your ears. Still crazy after all these years. Oh, still crazy after all these years. And that's where I'm stopped. Now.
And he explains his options, and you can hear him talking about the different musical choices that he has.
I'll give you my choices.
Okay.
These are musical choices, because lyrically, I really don't know what I have to say. Perhaps you'll give me the lyric. You give me the lyric, and I'll put the music in.
Okay.
Here I am on a D9 chord. Here I can go to this chord. I can go here to that chord. That's a G major. I can go. That's a G sharp minor.
He's not just simply letting things happen, but instead trying to evaluate the different ideas and the different choices that he has. It seems obvious, but he's at a crossroads within the song. He's not halfway through a verse, that idea has already finished. Instead, he's searching for a new idea. And it's at this point at the crossroads where he doesn't know what he wants to say, both musically and literally. And it's almost as if he needs to write another song to fit within this main song. It's also interesting to see how in this clip, he's talking a little bit about the notes that he's using and some music theory as well.
Well, anyway, my point is that if I go to this key, where I'm changing keys, I can get these notes in that I hadn't used, C and C sharp. And although the listener will not ever consciously say, those are two new notes I haven't heard, in fact, it will be refreshing to the ear.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleeping.
All songwriters, whether they like to admit it or not, are using a library of theory and technique when writing songs. Otherwise, anyone who's not even a musician could sit down and write a classic. But at the same time, they're also not thinking too much about it. Think about when you're driving. We tend to say that we're driving the car, but anyone who drives will know that none of our focus is actually on controlling the car. All of our focus is on the road. We're looking out the windows and we're looking in our mirrors. It's far more accurate to say that you're driving the road. Driving the car has become almost second nature. This knowledge of theory and technique is the same in music. Musicians will obviously know certain things, they might know what key they're in or what chords sound good together, but they're not actually thinking about this when they're writing. Instead, they're trying to connect to an idea and just communicate that through the music.
And flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and...
It was really interesting for me when I was thinking about learning the guitar, but it's also really interesting because it demonstrates to all of us that we can connect to this state of mind that songwriters have when they're writing a song. For you, it might be driving, or it might be walking, or even just when we're talking. We're not thinking about the individual actions or the words that we're saying. Instead, we're just trying to connect to an idea. And we hear all the time that the great songwriters and musicians are geniuses, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, or even Beethoven or Mozart. And I'm not saying that I could write music as good as them, but I am saying that it doesn't always help to overthink these things, and part of their craft was not overthinking. And there are many examples of songs where the songwriter has had an idea for a song, but it's taken months or maybe even years to finish. And you could say, well, why not just sit down and put in the time and effort to actually finish the song? But songwriting isn't so much about putting in this time and effort. It's not about crafting the song. It's about trying to find this idea that you can connect with. And sometimes you really just have to wait for the right thing to come along.
My bad habits lead to late nights, ending alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know.
But nowadays, of course, it is a lot more common to see pop music crafted in this more formulaic way. I made a video a few months ago about why I love Pet Sounds, and one of the reasons was because it was such a pure insight into the mind of Brian Wilson. But if you look at many of the songs written these days, they're written by a team of people. It's almost like a focus group, and they're trying to force a hit out of every single song. Whereas I don't think the more classic songwriters would sit down and think, okay, today I'm going to write a hit. Maybe apart from John Lennon and Paul McCartney, because everything they did was just a massive hit. Maybe you think music is better today, maybe not, but one thing is for sure, and that is that it's changed quite a lot. There are musicians in many different styles and genres that are making music that is genuinely authentic. But next time you listen to one of your favourite songs, it might be worth thinking, is it the music that I really like, or is it the ability to connect with something a bit deeper?